Ethan Caldwell looked at his wife with pure disgust, tossing a crumpled credit card statement onto the kitchen island. "You are useless, Charlotte. You sit here all day, getting fatter, while I work myself to death trying to secure the deal of a lifetime." He didn't know that the deal of a lifetime, an $840 million merger that would change the tech world, was sitting right in front of him, drinking herbal tea and wearing oversized sweatpants. He thought he was shouting at a housewife. He had no idea he was insulting the secret CEO who was about to decide his entire future. The morning light filtered through the blinds of the Caldwell's suburban kitchen, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, and the scowl etched deeply into Ethan Caldwell's face. The silence in the room wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, suffocating, like the air before a thunderstorm. Charlotte Lottie Caldwell sat at the marble island, her posture slumped slightly in a grey, oversized hoodie that had seen better days. She stirred her spoon listlessly through a bowl of plain oatmeal. To anyone looking through the window, she looked exactly like what Ethan accused her of being, a woman who had given up. "Are you even listening to me?" Ethan's voice cracked like a whip, shattering the quiet. He was standing by the espresso machine, buttoning the cuffs of his Italian silk shirt. He was handsome in a sharp, predatory way. Dark hair gelled back, jawline sharp, eyes cold. Charlotte didn't look up. "I'm listening, Ethan. You're worried about the car payments." "I'm not worried about them, Charlotte. I'm furious about them," he snapped, walking over and looming above her. He grabbed the fleshy part of her upper arm, not hard enough to bruise, but hard enough to be demeaning. "Look at this. You just take up space. You eat, you sleep, you spend my money. Do you have any idea what kind of pressure I am under at Tentative Global? We are days away from the biggest acquisition in the last decade. If I land this, I make partner. If I don't, we're done." He released her arm with a shove. Charlotte simply rubbed the spot, her expression unreadable. Her eyes, a piercing shade of hazel, were the only things about her that seemed sharp. "I've told you," Charlotte said softly, her voice raspy from disuse. "I can go back to work. I have experience in management. I could help." Ethan let out a bark of cruel laughter. "Help? You? Charlotte, look at yourself. You haven't worked a real job in 4 years. You're barely qualified to run a dishwasher, let alone help with a multi-million-dollar portfolio. My clients expect excellence. They expect image. You—" He gestured vaguely at her body, hidden beneath the baggy clothes. "You are an embarrassment. If I took you to the gala tonight, people would think I've given up on life." The words hung in the air, toxic and stinging. Charlotte placed her spoon down. A lesser woman might have cried. A weaker woman might have screamed. Charlotte just stared at the granite countertop, counting backward from 10. 10, 9, 8. "I'm sorry you feel that way, Ethan," she said, her tone monotonous. "Don't give me that passive-aggressive garbage," he sneered, checking his Rolex. "I'm leaving. I have a strategy lunch with Sasha. You know, someone who actually takes care of herself. Someone who has ambition." Sasha. The name was dropped casually, but it landed with the weight of a sledgehammer. Sasha Reed was Ethan's work wife, a junior executive who was everything Charlotte currently appeared not to be, thin, loud, and ruthlessly climbing the corporate ladder. "Don't wait up," Ethan muttered, grabbing his briefcase. He paused at the door, looking back one last time. "And for God's sake, Charlotte, try to do something productive today. Maybe walk around the block, burn a calorie or two." The door slammed shut. The vibration rattled the expensive coffee cups on the rack. Charlotte sat in the silence for exactly 30 seconds. Then, the slump in her shoulders vanished. Her spine straightened. The dull look in her eyes was instantly replaced by a cold, calculating fire. She stood up, walked to the sink, and dumped the oatmeal down the drain. She hated oatmeal. "Productive," she whispered to the empty room. "I can do productive." She reached into the pocket of her baggy sweatpants and pulled out a phone. It wasn't the cracked iPhone 11 Ethan allowed her to use. It was a sleek, unreleased prototype, encrypted, and worth more than Ethan's car. She dialed a single number. It rang once. "Good morning, Mrs. Caldwell," a crisp British voice answered. "Not today, Wesley," Charlotte said, her voice dropping an octave, commanding and smooth. "Today it's Ms. Banks, and tell the board to prep the conference room. I'm initiating the hostile takeover of Tentative Global ahead of schedule." 40 minutes later, the suburban housewife facade was dissolving on the back seat of a chauffeured Maybach cruising down the interstate. Charlotte had stripped off the grey hoodie. Underneath, she wore a tailored blouse that cost more than Ethan's entire wardrobe. She was applying a coat of blood-red lipstick in the vanity mirror. She didn't need to hide her figure here. She wasn't the fat woman Ethan saw. She was curvy, yes, but powerful, imposing, and carried herself with the grace of a queen panther. The car slowed as it approached a towering glass skyscraper in the heart of the financial district. The building was a monolith of steel and ambition, the headquarters of Omnicorp, a holding company so vast it had its fingers in everything from aerospace to pharmaceutical logistics. And Charlotte Banks, known to the world as the Ghost CEO, because she rarely gave interviews, owned 51% of it. The car stopped at the private underground entrance. Wesley, her executive assistant and right-hand man, was waiting. He was a tall man in his 50s, with silver hair and a face that gave away nothing. "Welcome back, Ms. Banks," Wesley said, opening the door. "The legal team has the papers for the Meridian project ready. However, we have a slight complication regarding the acquisition target." Charlotte stepped out, her heels clicking rhythmically on the concrete. "What complication?" "Tentative Global is bleeding money. They should be begging for us to buy them out." "They are," Wesley confirmed, matching her stride as they headed toward the private elevator. "But the lower management at Tentative is resistant. They believe they have a savior investor coming in to block the Omnicorp buyout. A rumor of an $840 million injection from a foreign entity." Charlotte laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "There is no foreign entity. I blocked that avenue 3 days ago. Who is leading the resistance on their end?" Wesley hesitated as the elevator doors slid shut, sealing them in the golden box. A senior VP named Marcus Sterling and his team leader, one Ethan Caldwell. Charlotte watched the numbers on the elevator display climb. 10, 20, 30. "Ethan?" she mused. "Of course, he thinks saving the company will make him a partner." "He has been quite vocal," Wesley noted, handing her a tablet. "He's been pitching to the board that Omnicorp is a vulture capital firm that will strip the company for parts. He's scheduled a final Hail Mary presentation today at 2 p.m. He claims he can prove Omnicorp is undervaluing them." Charlotte scrolled through the report on the tablet. She saw Ethan's name all over the documents. He was working hard, she had to give him that. But he was working hard to destroy the very golden parachute she was trying to deploy for him. Technically, if Omnicorp bought Tentative Global, Ethan would be redundant. But Charlotte had planned to pull strings to move him to a different division, give him a raise, maybe finally make him happy so he would stop taking his insecurities out on her. But this morning, "You are useless. You are an embarrassment." The memory of his voice made her grip tighten on the tablet. "Change of plans, Wesley," Charlotte said, as the elevator chimed at the penthouse floor. "Mum? I was going to handle this remotely." Let the lawyers do the talking. But if Mr. Caldwell wants to give a presentation on why my company is the villain, I think I should be there to hear it." Wesley raised an eyebrow. "You want to attend the negotiation meeting? In person? He will recognize you." Charlotte stepped out into her office, a sprawling expanse of glass and minimalist furniture overlooking the city. She walked to the window, looking down at the ants crawling on the pavement below. "He won't," Charlotte said, turning back to Wesley. "Ethan sees what he wants to see. He sees a lazy, overweight wife at home. He doesn't look at me, Wesley. He hasn't looked me in the eye in 2 years. Besides," she walked over to her desk and pressed a button, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside sat a pair of thick-rimmed designer glasses and a sharp, severe blazer that changed her silhouette completely. She pulled her hair back into a severe, tight bun. "I'm not going as Charlotte. I'm going as the CEO of Omnicorp, and it's about time my husband met his boss." The conference room at Tentative Global was smelling of fear and stale coffee. Ethan Caldwell was pacing the length of the room, his tie slightly loosened. He was sweating. This was it. The $840 million valuation hung in the balance. If he could convince the Omnicorp representatives that Tentative Global was worth more alive than dead, he would be a hero. Sitting at the table was Sasha Reed, scrolling on her phone. She looked bored. "Stop pacing, Ethan. You're making me dizzy," Sasha said, not looking up. "They're just suits. We dazzle them with the Q3 projections, hide the debt in the long-term liabilities column, and we're golden." "You don't understand, Sasha," Ethan hissed. "Omnicorp sends sharks. They don't send mid-level managers. I heard a rumor that banks might even send a proxy. We need to be perfect." He checked his reflection in the glass partition. He looked good. Powerful. Not like the man who had a useless wife at home. "I'm leaving her," he blurted out. Sasha finally looked up, a smirk playing on her red lips. "The cow? Don't call her that," Ethan said automatically, then sighed. "But yes, after this deal closes. Once my bonus clears, I'm filing the papers. I can't take it anymore. I come home to nothing. No ambition, no drive. It's like living with a ghost who eats all your food." "Well, you know I have plenty of drive," Sasha purred, leaning forward. Before Ethan could respond, the heavy oak doors swung open. The room went silent. A team of 5 lawyers in identical charcoal suits marched in, placing briefcases on the table with synchronized precision. They didn't speak. They simply stood at attention. Then Wesley entered. He cleared his throat. "Gentlemen, and Miss Reed," Wesley said, his voice carrying effortlessly. "Representing Omnicorp, the chairwoman of the board." Ethan straightened his tie, putting on his best winning smile. He expected an old man, or perhaps a severe, older woman in a tweed suit. Instead, a woman walked in who sucked the oxygen out of the room. She was wearing a black power suit that looked like it had been cut from the night sky. She wore thick-rimmed glasses that obscured her eyes, and her hair was pulled back so tightly it pulled her features into a sharp, angular mask. She didn't look at anyone. She walked straight to the head of the table, pulled out the chair, and sat down. Ethan frowned. There was something familiar about the way she moved, a tilt of the head. But he dismissed it instantly. This woman radiated power. His wife radiated despair. They were different species. "Good afternoon," the woman said. Her voice was low, modulated, and cold. She didn't offer a name. "I have read your counter-proposal, Mr. Caldwell." Ethan blinked. She knew his name. "Ah, yes. Thank you for coming. We believe that Omnicorp's offer of $840 million significantly undervalues our proprietary software." The woman, the CEO, leaned back, tapping a gold pen against the mahogany table. "The offer is $840 million for the assets. The debt, however, is your problem. Unless, of course, you can prove to me that your management team is competent enough to turn a profit within 6 months." She turned her head, the light catching her glasses, making them opaque. She looked directly at Ethan. "Tell me, Mr. Caldwell, why should I invest in you? What makes you valuable?" Ethan puffed out his chest. This was his moment. "I am dedicated to efficiency, Mom. I trim the fat. I eliminate dead weight, whether it's in personnel, budget, or resources. I don't tolerate laziness." A small, almost imperceptible smile touched the CEO's lips. It wasn't a nice smile. "You eliminate dead weight," she repeated. "Interesting choice of words. And you, Ms. Reed, what is your contribution?" Sasha tossed her hair. "I handle client relations, people skills." "I see," the CEO said. She opened a folder in front of her. "According to my due diligence, Mr. Caldwell, your division has lost 3 major accounts in the last quarter. You spend an average of 15 hours a week on client lunches that seem to result in 0 contracts." Ethan's face reddened. That's contextually inaccurate. Building relationships takes time." "Time is money," the CEO snapped. "And I don't like wasting mine. You claim you want to save this company, yet you treat it like a personal playground." She stood up abruptly, walking toward the window, turning her back to them. "I'm willing to give you a chance, Mr. Caldwell, a personal chance. Tonight, Omnicorp is hosting a gala for the prospective merger partners. Bring your spouse." Ethan froze. "My spouse?" "Yes," the CEO said, still facing the window. "I believe a man's domestic life reflects his professional stability. If you have a strong partner, you have a strong foundation. Bring your wife. I want to meet her." Ethan stammered. "My wife. She is, unfortunately, she's not feeling well. She's indisposed." "Make her disposed," the CEO commanded, turning around. The glare behind the glasses was terrifying. "If you want this deal, Mr. Caldwell, you will bring your wife to the masquerade gala at the Pierre Hotel tonight. No wife, no deal. Do I make myself clear?" Ethan swallowed hard. He looked at Sasha, who looked furious. "Crystal clear," Ethan whispered. "Good," the CEO said, gathering her files. "Get out!" The drive from the financial district to the suburbs usually took 45 minutes. Ethan made it in 30. He drove his leased BMW like a man possessed, weaving through the midday traffic on the FDR drive, his knuckles white against the leather steering wheel. His mind was a whirlpool of panic and rage. "Bring your wife." The words echoed in his head, bouncing around his skull like a ricocheting bullet. Of all the demands the mysterious Omnicorp CEO could have made, this was the one he couldn't fake. He couldn't forge a signature. He couldn't fudge a spreadsheet. He had to produce a human being, specifically, the human being he had spent the last 2 years emotionally dismantling. He tapped the Bluetooth button on his dashboard. "Sasha, pick up." "I'm here." Sasha's voice purred through the speakers. "Did you fix it? Did you tell that witch that your wife has leprosy or something?" "It didn't work," Ethan snapped, swerving around a delivery truck. "She's insane. Banks. She's obsessed with domestic stability. She wants to see Lottie. Tonight. At the Pierre." "Tonight?" Sasha shrieked. "But tonight is our night. We were going to celebrate the pre-deal. I bought that dress from Versace, the gold one." "I know, baby. I know," Ethan soothed, though his eyes were frantic. "But if I don't walk in there with Charlotte on my arm, the deal is dead. And if the deal is dead, I'm fired. Marcus Sterling is looking for any excuse to cut me loose. I need this merger." There was a sullen silence on the other end. Fine. So drag the cow out of the barn. Put some lipstick on her. How hard can it be? You haven't seen her lately, Sasha, Ethan groaned. She's let herself go completely. She wears these grey sacks. She doesn't speak. She's a void. Putting her next to the high rollers at Omnicorp is like parking a rusted tractor in a Ferrari showroom. Just buy her something that covers everything, Sasha suggested coldly. A tent, maybe? Look, just get her there. Prop her in a corner with a plate of cheese, and do the talking. I'll meet you there later. I'll sneak in as a +1 for the legal VP. But Ethan, you better ignore her the second you get the contract signed. I promise, Ethan said. I'll stop by the boutique on the way. I'll force her into something presentable. He hung up as he pulled into his driveway. The house looked pristine from the outside, a lie of suburban perfection. He stormed inside, carrying a garment bag he'd hastily purchased from a high-end boutique in the city centre, charging it to a credit card that was already near its limit. "Charlotte!" he bellowed. There was no answer. He ran up the stairs, throwing open the bedroom door. Charlotte was lying on the bed, still in her sweatpants, reading a paperback novel. Or at least she appeared to be. In reality, she had been reading the dossier on Marcus Sterling's embezzlement schemes on her encrypted tablet, slipping it under the pillow the moment she heard Ethan's car engine roar into the driveway. She looked up, her eyes wide and seemingly innocent. "Ethan? You're home early. Is everything okay?" "No, everything is not okay," he barked, throwing the garment bag onto the bed. It landed heavily near her feet. "Get up, shower, shave, whatever you need to do. We are going out." Charlotte sat up slowly, adjusting her glasses. "Going out? Where? You said you had a meeting." "I do. A gala. A masquerade ball at the Pierre Hotel," Ethan said, pacing the room, tearing off his tie. "The CEO of Omnicorp insists on meeting spouses. Don't ask me why. She's probably some sadistic old spinster who wants to see if my home life is as miserable as her own." Charlotte hid a smile. Sadistic old spinster. "Nice touch, Ethan." "I don't have anything to wear to a gala, Ethan," she said quietly. "And you know I don't like crowds. My anxiety." "I don't care about your anxiety," Ethan roared, spinning around to face her. "I care about my career. I care about the roof over your head. Look, I bought you a dress. It's a size 14. It's huge. It should fit you." Charlotte looked at the bag. She was actually a size 8, but she wore layers of bulky clothing at home to hide her figure, a habit she'd started when Ethan first began criticizing her weight. It was a test, initially, to see if he loved her for her or her body. He had failed the test spectacularly. "Ethan, a masquerade? Tonight? I haven't done my hair. I put it in a bun." "I don't care," Ethan interrupted, grabbing her by the shoulders. His grip was tight. "Listen to me, Charlotte. This is an $840 million deal. If you screw this up for me, if you say something stupid, or spill sauce on yourself, or act like the depressed lump you've been for the last 2 years, I am done. I will divorce you so fast, your head will spin, and I will leave you with nothing. Do you understand?" "Nothing." Charlotte looked into his eyes. She saw the fear behind the anger. He was a small, terrified man, bullying the only person he thought he could control. "I understand," she said softly. "Good." He released her. "The car leaves in an hour. Put on the mask I bought. It covers half your face. Thank God for small mercies." He slammed the bathroom door, leaving her alone. Charlotte stood up. She walked over to the garment bag and unzipped it. It was a hideous dress, a shapeless, navy blue chiffon sack with too many ruffles. It was the kind of dress you bought when you wanted to hide someone. She touched the fabric, her expression hardening. "You want me to play the part of the disappointment, Ethan? she whispered to the empty room. Fine. I'll play it. Until the curtain falls. She reached under the bed and pulled out a sleek, black briefcase. Inside was her own attire for the evening, compressed into a vacuum-sealed bag. She wouldn't wear it yet. She would wear Ethan's sack of a dress into the hotel, but she wouldn't be wearing it when she walked out. The Pierre Hotel on Fifth Avenue was a fortress of old-world money. A line of limousines snaked around the block, depositing captains of industry, tech moguls and foreign dignitaries onto the red carpet. The air smelled of expensive perfume, exhaust fumes, and roasted chestnuts from a vendor on the corner. Ethan Caldwell's leased BMW looked out of place among the Bentleys and Rolls-Royces, but the valet took the keys without a sneer, trained in professional indifference. Ethan stepped out, adjusting his tuxedo. He put on a black domino mask, which hid the sweat beading on his forehead. He walked around to the passenger side and opened the door. "Come on, and keep your head down," he hissed. Charlotte emerged. She was wearing the navy blue ruffled dress. It hung on her awkwardly. She had pinned her hair back in a messy, loose bun, and she wore no makeup visible behind the silver mask Ethan had forced on her. She looked frumpy. She looked out of place. She looked exactly like the anchor Ethan believed she was. "Remember," Ethan whispered as he gripped her elbow, steering her toward the revolving gold doors. "You don't speak unless spoken to. If someone asks what you do, you say you're a homemaker. Don't try to sound smart. Don't mention your little online blogs or whatever it is you do all day." "I understand, Ethan," she murmured, her head bowed. They entered the grand ballroom. It was a spectacle of excess. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars hung from the gold leaf ceiling. A 20-piece orchestra played a waltz on a raised stage. Waiters in white gloves moved like ghosts through the crowd, offering flutes of vintage champagne. The room was filled with masks, Venetian beaks, feathered carnival masks, simple black bands. It was a sea of anonymity. Ethan scanned the room frantically. "I need to find the CEO, or Wesley. I need to show them you are here so I can get credit for it, and then I can stash you at a table." "I need to use the ladies' room, Ethan," Charlotte said, clutching her stomach. "The car ride, I feel a bit nauseous." Ethan rolled his eyes so hard it was visible even through his mask. "Of course you do. God, you are fragile. Fine, go, but be quick. I'll be at the bar." He watched her shuffle away toward the restrooms, a shapeless blue blob in a sea of diamonds and silk. He felt a wave of shame so potent it almost choked him. "How did I end up with her?" he thought. "I deserve a queen. I deserve someone like Sasha." He turned toward the bar, ordering a double scotch. He checked his phone. Sasha was here somewhere, wearing a gold mask. While Ethan nursed his drink and scanned for his mistress, Charlotte entered the ladies' lounge. It was empty, save for an attendant in the corner. Charlotte approached the attendant, a woman she had personally hired 3 years ago. "Good evening, Miss Banks," the attendant said, locking the main door and flipping the sign to occupied. "Your suite is ready." Charlotte didn't just go to a stall. She walked through a service door in the back of the lounge that led to a private dressing area reserved for VIPs. In a flurry of motion, the transformation began. The navy blue sack dress was unzipped and thrown into a corner. The oversized padding she wore around her waist, the fat Ethan hated so much, was unstrapped and discarded. Underneath, Charlotte was toned and strong. She stepped into a gown she had commissioned from Paris specifically for this night. It was made of black velvet that seemed to absorb the light, cut with a daring neckline and a slit that went up to her thigh. It fit her like a second skin, revealing a silhouette that was hourglass perfection. She sat at the vanity. The attendant worked quickly, pinning her hair up into an intricate architectural style that added 3 inches to her height. A layer of bold, dark makeup was applied, smoky eyes, blood-red lips. Finally, the jewelry. A diamond choker worth $3 million and a mask. This mask was not the cheap silver plastic Ethan had bought. It was filigree gold, encrusted with black diamonds. It covered the upper half of her face, but it didn't hide her eyes. It framed them, making them look predatory. Charlotte stood up and looked in the mirror. Lottie, the housewife, was dead. The shark of Wall Street had arrived. "How do I look, Maria?" Charlotte asked. "Like you're about to fire everyone." Maria grinned. "Not everyone," Charlotte said, smoothing the velvet over her hips. "Just one." She checked her watch. It was time for the keynote. She exited not through the bathroom, but through the private service corridor that led directly to the backstage area of the ballroom. Ethan was on his 3rd scotch. He was starting to panic. Charlotte had been gone for 20 minutes. If she had run away, he was dead. "Ethan," a husky voice whispered in his ear. He turned. It was Sasha. She was wearing a stunning gold dress that left little to the imagination, and a matching gold mask. She looked expensive. "Sasha, not now," Ethan hissed, looking around. "I can't find my wife. She went to the bathroom and vanished." "Maybe she got stuck in the stall," Sasha giggled, taking a sip of his drink. "Forget her. Have you seen the CEO yet? Rumor has it she's here. People say she's the woman in the black velvet on the balcony." Ethan looked up. On the mezzanine level overlooking the dance floor, a woman stood alone. She was clad in black velvet, holding a champagne flute with a boredom that suggested she owned the building. She was breathtaking. Even from this distance, the power radiated off her. "That's her?" Ethan asked, entranced. "She looks incredible." "Go talk to her," Sasha urged. "Charm her. Forget the cow. If you land the CEO, you don't need to show off your wife." Ethan straightened his tie. It was a Hail Mary pass. "You're right. I'm going up there." He navigated the stairs, heart pounding. He had to bypass 2 security guards who stopped him. "I'm Ethan Caldwell, Senior VP of Tentative Global. I have a scheduled integration meeting," he lied smoothly. The guards checked their earpieces. Surprisingly, they stepped aside. "Ms. Banks will see you." Ethan walked onto the balcony. The noise of the party faded slightly up here. The woman in black was facing the crowd below, her back to him. The curve of her spine, the elegance of her neck. It was mesmerizing. "Ms. Banks?" Ethan said, his voice trembling slightly. The woman turned slowly. The black diamond mask caught the light. Her lips were painted a dark crimson. She didn't smile. "Mr. Caldwell," she said. Her voice was different, lower, sharper, with a clipped transatlantic accent that Charlotte never used. "You seem to be unaccompanied. I gave you specific instructions." Ethan gulped. He stepped closer, trying to use his physical presence, usually his best asset. "My wife is here, Miss Banks. She is downstairs. She's not feeling well. To be honest, she's not cut out for this world." "Your world?" The CEO tilted her head. "And what world is that?" "The world of excellence," Ethan said, moving to stand beside her at the railing. "My wife. She's a simple woman. She has no ambition. She let herself go years ago. I try to motivate her. I try to push her. But it's like pulling a dead weight." "Is that so?" The CEO took a sip of champagne. "It must be very difficult for a man of your potential to be tethered to someone so useless." Ethan felt a surge of validation. She understood. "It is. It's exhausting. I practically run Tentative Global single-handedly while dealing with her incompetence at home. I'm actually planning to leave her. Once this deal is closed, of course." Of course, the CEO said, because you need the bonus. I need the freedom, Ethan corrected, trying to sound noble. I need a partner who challenges me. Someone someone who understands power. He looked at her suggestively. The CEO turned fully toward him. Behind the mask, her hazel eyes glittered with something Ethan mistook for interest. It was actually loathing. You believe you are indispensable to Tentative Global, Mr. Caldwell? I am the engine, Ethan declared. Marcus Sterling is a dinosaur. The other VPs are terrified of their own shadows. I'm the only one with the vision to integrate with Omnicorp. And the debt? She asked. The $80 million in hidden debt in the logistics division? Ethan froze. That was a secret. That was a clerical error. I fixed it. Did you? She stepped closer. She smelled of jasmine and vanilla. It was a scent that tickled a memory in the back of Ethan's brain, but he couldn't place it. Or did you just move the numbers to the chaotic, miscellaneous ledger? Ethan sweated. You are very well informed, Ms. Banks. I have to be. I'm about to spend nearly $1 billion. She checked her diamond-encrusted watch. It's time for the announcement. Walk with me, Mr. Caldwell. Walk with you? To the stage? Ethan's heart soared. This was it. The endorsement. Yes. I think it's important the shareholders see exactly who they are getting into bed with. She took his arm. Her grip was strong, steel beneath the velvet glove. She led him not to the stairs, but to the central podium that overlooked the entire ballroom. As they appeared, the music stopped. The spotlight swung up, blinding Ethan for a moment. He squinted, smiling, waving to the crowd. He saw Sasha down below, her mouth open in awe. He was standing next to the most powerful woman in the city. He had made it. Wesley stepped up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, Wesley boomed, the moment we have been waiting for. Please welcome the CEO of Omnicorp, Ms. Charlotte Banks. Ethan froze. Charlotte? He looked at the woman beside him. Banks? He chuckled nervously. Funny, he whispered to her. Her name is Charlotte, too. My wife, I mean. The woman leaned into the microphone. Her voice boomed through the speakers, silencing the room. Good evening, she said. Tonight is a night of revelation. We often look at things, companies, investments, people, and we think we know their value. We judge them by their cover. We judge them by their current state. She paused, looking down at the crowd, then turned her head slowly to look at Ethan. Sometimes, she continued, her voice turning icy, we look at an asset and call it useless. We call it dead weight. We think it has no value because it doesn't look the way we want it to look. Ethan's smile was starting to falter. The sweat was running down his back. The phrasing, it was too specific. But a smart investor knows that true value is often hidden, she said, and a smart investor never, ever insults the person holding the checkbook. She reached up with both hands. Ethan watched in slow motion. The crowd held its breath. She untied the silk ribbon at the back of her head. The gold, diamond-encrusted mask fell away. Ethan stared. The face was sharper than he remembered. The makeup was bolder. The eyes were hard as flint. But there was no mistaking it. It was the woman he had yelled at this morning. It was the woman he had thrown a size 14 dress at. It was the woman he had called a cow. Hello, Ethan, Charlotte said, her voice amplified by the speakers, echoing through the silent ballroom. I believe you were just telling me about how much you wanted to divorce me. Ethan's knees gave way. He gripped the podium to stop himself from falling. Lottie, he squeaked. That's Miss Banks to you. She smiled, and it was a smile that promised absolute destruction. The silence that befell the grand ballroom of the Pierre Hotel was absolute. It was a physical weight, pressing down on the chest of every guest, waiter, and musician. 300 masks were turned upward toward the stage, where the unthinkable had just happened. Ethan Caldwell stood frozen, his hand still gripping the podium as if it were the only thing keeping him from dissolving into the floor. His brain was misfiring, unable to bridge the gap between two irreconcilable realities. There was Charlotte, his wife, the woman he had left at home in a baggy hoodie, the woman he had ridiculed for eating oatmeal, the woman he had called a fat, useless cow less than 12 hours ago. And there was Miss Banks, the billionaire shark of Wall Street, the architect of the merger, the woman holding his life in her manicured hands. They were the same person. "Lottie?" Ethan whispered again, his voice cracking into the microphone. The sound screeched through the speakers, making several guests wince. "But how? You're at home. You're watching TV." Charlotte stepped away from him, creating a chasm of distance that felt miles wide. She didn't look at him with love, or even with the hurt he was used to seeing. She looked at him with the clinical detachment of a coroner examining a corpse. "I haven't watched TV in 4 years, Ethan," she said, her voice projecting clear and cold to the back of the room. "While you were out, networking." She made air quotes with her fingers that cut like knives. "I was building Omnicorp's European division. While you were sleeping in on Sundays, I was on conference calls with Tokyo. And while you were berating me for spending $50 on groceries, I was closing an $840 million acquisition." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Phones were out. Flashes were popping. This was being live-streamed to the world. "This is a joke," Ethan laughed hysterically, his eyes darting around the room. He pointed a shaking finger at the audience. "This is a prank, right? Sasha? Where is she? This is some kind of sick, twisted joke." Charlotte gestured to the tech booth. "Wesley, if you please. Slide 1. The massive projection screen behind them, which was supposed to display the merger logo, flickered to life. It didn't show a logo. It showed a high-resolution photograph of a bank statement. "You asked me earlier what makes you valuable, Ethan," Charlotte said, turning to look at the screen. "You claimed you were the engine of Tentative Global. You claimed you trimmed the fat." "Charlotte, don't!" Ethan begged, realizing what was on the screen. "Please, we can talk about this at home." "We don't have a home, Ethan. The house is in my name. I bought it before we met. You just pay the utilities," she corrected him mercilessly. "And as for trimming the fat, let's look at your expenses." She used a laser pointer, circling a series of transactions. "Here we have $45,000 listed as client entertainment at the Gilded Cage," Charlotte narrated. "However, the Gilded Cage is a jewelry boutique, and I certainly never received any jewelry. Did any of the clients here receive a diamond bracelet from Mr. Caldwell?" Silence from the floor. "I didn't think so," Charlotte continued. Slide 2. The screen changed. It was a split screen. On one side, Ethan's company calendar marked Critical Strategy Meeting. On the other side, a time-stamped photo of Ethan and Sasha Reed sitting on a beach in the Hamptons, drinking margaritas. The crowd gasped. It was brutal. It was undeniable. "You told me this morning that you were under immense pressure," Charlotte said, turning back to face him. Her eyes were blazing. "You told me I was useless because I didn't contribute. You told me I was an embarrassment. Meanwhile, you have been siphoning company funds to pay for a mistress who, frankly, gives terrible investment advice." Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. He looked down into the crowd. Sasha Reed was trying to push her way through the guests toward the exit, shielding her face with her gold mask. "Ms. Reed," Charlotte called out, Please don't leave. You're part of the team, aren't you?" Security guards at the doors stepped in front of Sasha, blocking her path. The room turned to look at the terrified mistress. "I didn't know!" Sasha shrieked, her voice shrill. "I swear, he told me he was single. He told me he was the CEO. He made me charge the card." "You're lying," Ethan screamed from the stage, his composure finally shattering completely. "You begged for that bracelet. You told me to cook the books. You said, hide it in the long-term liabilities. Nobody looks there." "And there it is," Charlotte said calmly. "The admission of guilt." She signaled to the side of the stage. Two men in dark suits stepped out. They weren't hotel security. They wore FBI windbreakers. Ethan's knees buckled. He grabbed the podium again, hyperventilating. "FBI! Charlotte! Lottie! Baby, please! You can't do this. I'm your husband. We took vows. For better or for worse." Charlotte walked up to him, close enough that he could smell the expensive perfume he had failed to recognize earlier. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper that the microphone still caught, amplifying it into a death sentence. "You broke those vows the moment you touched her," she hissed. "You broke them every time you called me fat to make yourself feel big. You broke them when you looked at me with disgust. You wanted a powerful woman, Ethan. You wanted someone who could handle the pressure. Congratulations, you found her. And she is pressing charges." "On what grounds?" Ethan cried, tears streaming down his face now, ruining his masquerade mask. "Embezzlement! I can pay it back. My bonus—" "There is no bonus," Charlotte said, stepping back. "And it's not just embezzlement. It's corporate espionage. You see, when you tried to sell Tentative Global's proprietary data to our competitors last week to secure a backup job. Yes, I saw those emails too. You committed a federal crime." Ethan slumped. He looked like a deflated balloon. The arrogance, the swagger, the cruelty, it had all evaporated, leaving behind a small, pathetic man in a rented tuxedo. "Get him out of my sight," Charlotte commanded. The FBI agents moved in. They didn't handle him gently. One grabbed his arm, twisting it behind his back. The other cuffed him. "Charlotte!" Ethan screamed as they dragged him across the stage. "I love you! I'm sorry! I was just stressed! Please, I'll change! I'll eat the oatmeal! I'll do anything!" His voice faded as they dragged him through the backstage curtains. The heavy velvet fabric swung shut, swallowing his pleas. The ballroom was dead silent. 300 people were staring at Charlotte. They were terrified of her. Charlotte took a deep breath. She reached up and smoothed a stray hair from her bun. She walked back to the podium. "My apologies for the interruption," she said, her voice steady, returning to the professional calm of a CEO. "As I was saying, Omnicorp values transparency. We value integrity, and we value assets that perform." She looked down at Sasha Reed, who was weeping silently near the dessert table, surrounded by security. "Ms. Reed," Charlotte said, "you are terminated, effective immediately. Your severance package consists of a bill for the unauthorized expenses you incurred. I expect payment within 30 days, or my legal team will seize your assets." Sasha sobbed, collapsing into a chair. Charlotte looked out at the sea of stunned faces, the bankers from Goldman Sachs, the investors from Geneva, the tech moguls from Silicon Valley. "The merger with Tentative Global will proceed," Charlotte announced. "However, the leadership team has obviously been restructured. We will be rebuilding the company from the ground up. We will value hard work. We will value loyalty. And we will never, ever judge a book by its cover." She raised her glass. "To the future. To the future!" The crowd roared back, partly out of respect, partly out of fear. The autumn leaves were falling in Central Park, painting the sidewalk in shades of gold and rust. Charlotte sat on a park bench, wrapped in a cashmere coat, watching the world go by. She wasn't hiding in a hoodie anymore. She didn't need to. Her phone buzzed. It was Wesley. "Ms. Banks," Wesley said, "the final papers have been processed. The divorce is absolute." "And the settlement?" Charlotte asked, taking a sip of her coffee. "Mr. Caldwell contested it, of course," Wesley said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "He tried to claim spousal support. He argued that he had become accustomed to a certain lifestyle." Charlotte laughed softly. "And what did the judge say?" The judge reminded him that federal prison does not require a lifestyle budget. He was sentenced this morning. 5 years for fraud and embezzlement. He'll be eligible for parole in 3 if he behaves. "Good," Charlotte said. She felt a weight lift off her chest that she hadn't realized was still there. "And the other matter?" "Ms. Reed declared bankruptcy yesterday. She's moved back to Ohio to live with her parents." "Tragic," Charlotte said, without an ounce of sympathy. She hung up the phone and took a deep breath of the crisp air. For 2 years, she had played a role. She had made herself small so Ethan could feel big. She had dimmed her light so he wouldn't be blinded. She had absorbed his insults, his neglect, and his cruelty, hoping that the man she married was still in there somewhere. But that man never existed. Ethan loved the idea of success, not the work required to achieve it. He loved the image of a wife, not the human being. Charlotte stood up. A gust of wind caught her hair, blowing it across her face. She brushed it back, smiling. She walked toward the street where her driver was waiting. A young man in a suit rushed past her, talking loudly on his phone. "Yeah, I told my wife she needs to step it up," the man was saying aggressively. "She's just sitting around while I'm out here grinding." Charlotte stopped. She turned and looked at the stranger. "Excuse me," she said. The young man stopped, annoyed. "Yeah? What?" Charlotte looked him up and down. She saw the cheap shoes, the insecure posture, the desperation in his eyes. "Be careful," she said softly. "You never know who she really is." The man blinked, confused. "What?" Charlotte didn't answer. She just smiled, turned, and stepped into the back of her waiting Maybach. As the car pulled away, merging into the stream of traffic, she opened her laptop. There was another company in London that was underperforming, another CEO who was stealing from the pension fund, another mess to clean up. Charlotte Banks had work to do, and this time she wasn't waiting for anyone's permission to shine. This story serves as a brutal reminder that arrogance is often the precursor to a fall. Ethan Caldwell made the fatal mistake of confusing kindness with weakness and silence with stupidity. He treated his wife as an accessory to his life rather than a partner, never realizing that she was the very foundation upon which his career rested. In a world obsessed with image, likes, and status, it is easy to forget that true power often moves in silence. Ethan chased the flashy illusion of Sasha and the validation of a title, blind to the diamond he already had at home. His downfall wasn't just caused by his crimes, it was caused by his character. He underestimated the person he should have cherished the most, and in doing so, he signed his own warrant. The next time you feel tempted to judge someone by their appearance, or the next time you think you are the smartest person in the room, remember Ethan. Remember that the useless person in the corner might just be the one signing your paycheck. If you enjoyed this story of instant karma and dramatic revenge, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to share this video with someone who needs a reminder to stay humble, and subscribe for more stories where the underdog bites back. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a twist.